been unsuccessful so far. And we find it weird that they completely agreed that they want to take attention off vaccines, which my government member mentioned is currently what's considered to be the most promising way, no thank you, of dealing with HIV, no thank you. The mutation nature, the way in which HIV mutates is the reason in which current cures are not being effective. But vaccines, no thank you, which attempt to mutate the white blood cells in people so that they're long enough to breach through the outer membrane of HIV and actually get to the inside by changing the human immune system, which is a vaccine, is what's most effective. And unless they want this to be the type of clinical trials in which they give people vaccines and then test AIDS on them to see if it works, that's also morally abhorrent and something, no thank you, that we cannot accept. So we find that they're a side which actually doesn't bring about much success or much change, right? But now we need to ask ourselves, what are the harms that they're actively bringing to society? Okay? And we find that this is where we brought our extension. We brought forth 3 specific harms that these types of medications have. Well, firstly, they're very radical, these attempts to cure people, right? They try and kill HIV by generally being things which kill organic compositions, which kill cells, like in a similar way to chemotherapy, which is just a poison, which we hope will attack HIV or cancer, but also tends to attack people. And so these radical treatments are definitely harmful for the people involved. And even if they do survive, by the end of it, their life's got they're very frail, they're very weak, and their life's got a definitive lower quality, right? We mentioned also how if you're cutting certain aspects of your trials and you're using humans directly for primary trials, you haven't removed the side effects. It's not okay for you to say we've got standards, which means that side effects have to be removed first, because those standards are the primary testing that we don't do on humans, right? If you're advocating human primary testing, you're advocating testing in which we haven't removed side effects involved with these ingredients, which are terribly harmful to people, right? And moreover, there's the final harm, which is closing opposition condoned, which is that people actually have to go off their antiretrovirals for our trials for a cure. Because otherwise we can't decide what's actually the cure and what's actually the antiretrovirals. And in fact, Closing Opposition said in a very weird few lines that they actually think that antiretrovirals are bad and they don't want these people to be taking them. But antiretrovirals are definitively good, right? But all these 3 harms are made more extensive by the fact that all cure techniques and the hundreds of cures that have been tested on animals so far have been unsuccessful, which means all these harms are going to continue to be cyclically happening to more and more and more and more thousands of people, right? So that's the harms that we brought you, which were still unrebutted. What they tried to do is use a military equivocation argument to say we allow people in the military to risk their lives. Well, firstly, people in the military have an actual effect in which if enough people go to protect a country, they're actually going to protect their country. It's not just a potential chance that maybe you're going to come up with a cure, which is currently very unlikely under the status quo. And finally, also people who join the military do it for altruistic reasons, not because they're manipulated. These people are specifically manipulated into making an irrational decision. And I'll take in a moment, Oliver, but this is where Closing Opposition needs to listen very carefully, right? Because these people are told that they're going to die, and that's a very hard thing to be told. Besides the fact that antiretrovirals can prolong your life, and prolonging your life basically means that you were going to die, but now you're going to die later, which is basically saving your life. So antiretrovirals do so much good for giving people a longer life and more of a quality of life. But they hear that they're going to die, and they hear that there's potentially a cure, and so they're manipulated into doing something, as opposed to, and if you value utilitarianism, as opposed to something which is definitively more likely to give you a quality of life than grasping for straws and being likely to be unsuccessful. Yes,
just regurgitating Michelle's analysis on desperation doesn't make it work, because we think by Jamie's criteria, we'll give these people counseling and we'll do a rationality test to know that these people aren't irrational, not desperate, right? So we think desperation is not inherent.
I'm talking about why the inherence of it is desperation, right? And we can see this desperation in the nature, and this is what Dan spoke about how drug companies go into the developing world and into Africa and offer financial reimbursement for people being involved in drug trials, no thank you, which are generally just as damaging and morally abhorrent, and that's why they won't be done in the country. So you find that those trials are bad, and I'd like to add that this is Dan's development of the type of irrationality that these people are involved in, right? And the final thing that I want to talk about is opening government's attempted response at moral appearance, which is like we test economic theories on humans and stuff. So testing economic theories is inherently different because it doesn't have all the harms attached. Moreover, no thank you, and generally people agree and get something out of it. We cannot condone a system where you're actually only attempting to use people as a means to an end without actually any likelihood of success. We find that to be a morally abhorrent principle in and of itself. So essentially what you show you is that side-opening governments being inconsistent governments being inconsistent throughout their entire bench. They don't achieve much benefit, but as we proved in the closing opposition, they bring a whole bunch of unacceptable harms, and therefore we cannot condone this unacceptable form of primary medical testing for HIV vaccines.